Yes, sir.
Okay. The Yardley Borough Council will come to order with a salute to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to have a motion to minutes.
I will move to approve an amended version of the minutes. I had to abstain from 3 certificates of appropriateness last time for conflict of interest, so I just added the conflict of interest memorandum to the end of the minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Need a second? Second by Mr. Roth. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any questions on the amendment? Okay. Those opposed? Hearing none? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we'll move right into progress reports. Mr. Solicitor.
We have nothing to report this evening.
Madam Borough Manager.
We received our state aid for our municipal pension fund, so that's going to be on RS tomorrow morning. I won't be in the office tomorrow. I'm going to be attending a budget training class in Ninehorn. And then we have another training class that I'm going with the chief for the civil service sometime, probably about 2 weeks, I think, right?
Week from Thursday.
A week from Thursday.
A quick question. Did the flagpole get replaced?
The flagpole is up. We received a donation from Martelli, so we're going to be sending them a letter thanking them. So the flag is up, the light will be put in any day.
Does that conclude your report, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Quick one, a reminder, tomorrow, 1 o'clock, the Yardley Borough on Air Radio Show, 1490 AM WBCB. That's it, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief.
Sir, I have September 2018 service statistics for the Yardley Borough Police Department. In September, the Yardley Borough Police officers responded to 535 calls for service. We had 11 arrests, 3 additional for DUI, investigated 6 traffic accidents, issued 111 traffic citations, and 5 non-traffic citations.
Thank you, Chief. That conclude your report, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Madam Borough Engineer.
Thank you. First, I'll start with the main act and signal improvements. RBE is coordinating with PennDOT regarding the 88 ramp construction at this intersection. We're also continuing to work with PennDOT regarding the signal design. Moving on to the 2018 liquid fuel road program, construction is substantially complete, and we'll be performing final inspections and preparing the punch list. Regarding inlet cleaning and jetting, we have been working to schedule the inlet cleaning work, and I'm happy to report that the cleaning will be scheduled for this upcoming Monday. Regarding University Drive sinkhole, we were soliciting quotes. We received 2 quotes, one from Trenchless Solutions and one from TLC Drain and Sewer. We had asked Trenchless Solutions to revisit their quote because their quote was substantially lower than TLC Drain and Sewer. TLC Drain and Sewer had an opportunity to view the video inspection that was done for the pipe, and their cost was almost triple what Drifter Solutions. So we provided the video to them, and we're asking them to take a second look at their quote. And we'll continue to solicit quotes. Regarding the FMA 2014 grant application, construction is complete, and the grant coordinator is in the process of closing out the projects. Regarding the FMA 2015 grant application, construction is underway for 31 North Delaware. And then regarding the MS4 permit, we submitted the annual report on September 28th of this year. And lastly, for Yardley Walk, we issued a deficiency letter to Lennar regarding the upper dam. And that concludes my report this evening.
I can ask a quick question about the University Drive closed.
Yes.
Just ballpark, what is triple of what?
Okay, so TLC Drain and Sewer, their quote was $13,048.
Oh, okay.
And Trencher Solutions was about $4,800. So you want to make sure that they didn't miss anything, and like I said in the report, that they didn't have an opportunity to review the video at the time, so we provided the video and asked them to take a second look, and ideally, we would like to get a third quote, so we can kind of see if there's, if one is really more favorable than the other, make sure, that, we don't have any lowballing the number to try to come back and get additional money. They're awarded.
Any other questions? Thank you. And welcome. I'm going to just, Grant, Council Vice President.
Take it easy, I have no report this evening.
Okay. For my report, I will have nothing either. Move to council committees.
General government, we scheduled our NMS tour for last night because of rain last night. You have before you photos from our tour. I just think because it's a budgeted line item for next year, it's important for you all to see that the building is in pretty bad shape, specifically on the outside, the flashing, some of the doors. And then on the last two pages, you'll see where they've had significant leaks in one of the dormers that the tenant has repaired himself, but a new one has just come through. So Ken Smith is going to draw up an official list of the repairs, but I just thought it would be good for you all to see photos of that. So I don't have any questions.
Just about, are we gonna fix the leak in Borough Hall too?
Yeah, so we've talked about possibly doing that this year. We do have the money for that, but obviously that would be something we would need to vote on. I don't believe I've seen an official write-up from Ken. So we would have to, we would probably have to bid that out depending on the dollar of that project. The preliminary budget was sent to everyone on council, just for the public's reference. We have 3 things that we're doing as a follow-up from the budget town hall that was a few weeks ago. We're going to publish the Excel spreadsheet on the Borough website. We'll publish a user-friendly version of the budget on the website, which includes line item descriptions of the major things that go into each budget item. And then we'll also be publishing a list of one-time versus recurring costs that are included in this budget, so the public is more aware of what goes into it. David Bria, Matt Ross, myself, Clara will also be attending the budget and finance training tomorrow with Paula. We're hoping to have one of the instructors look at our budget and actually reach out to them, and they would be willing to do that during lunch, and specifically look at our inter-fund transfer section that we've been trying to figure out how to present that in a more user-friendly way. I have nothing to report for community outreach.
Thank you, ma'am. Let me just ask you one question on the repair of this roof. You okay with that? Finalized? Because I know we're taking on water.
That's right, or we need to act on it. You guys need to move something else, go out to bid and get that rolling.
And we want to
Because
get
we
that
have
out.
to, it's gonna be
So if we can have that on there, I'll collect some more information, have that on the agenda for next week.
We just have to get it to school.
Yes.
Motion for, we can vote on it to get available.
second. Any questions on that motion? Hearing none, take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Abstained? Hearing none. Unanimous. Thank you both. Thank you. Good play. Thank you, Matt. Brian? anything to add?
No, but it would be nice to appoint the 3 members so far of the Reading Ave Community Committee.
Yes, sir.
Will you do the honor?
Yes, sir. I was going to do that in my report. I didn't get a chance to
Okay.
talk to you coming in with ready to
Well,
go with the 3, but
Defer to you.
thank you, sir. Okay, that is your participation, Sarah?
Yep.
Yeah.
As a follow-up to the last council meeting, a resident had voiced some concerns about parking on Lincoln Avenue, so we are looking into that. And hopefully I'll have more to share with you. Council President, I have also prepared a statement that I'd like to share as it's become kind of public what has happened at the executive meeting on Thursday. So, first, I wanted to thank everyone, including the mayor, Brian Marshall, the chief, and borough manager, as well as many members of you out in the community who have reached out to me via text, email, phone, and in person for the words of encouragement and support that I received since Thursday night. It's made a big difference to me following a difficult experience. And I especially want to thank Ryan Berry for his presence of mind and his courage to walk out when Mr. Riddle began to yell personal insults at me. The fact is, Thursday night's executive session was not the first time I have been on the receiving end of Mr. Riddle's tirade. I have been repeatedly targeted since I joined council, and everyone on council knows it. There is, in fact, a pervasive bullying mentality and culture on this council. You may have wondered how a person like Mr. Riddle was ever even voted to the position of council president in January instead of someone else. Well, that was my first glimpse of what was to come. When someone else simply considered having me as part of a committee that they hold too dear, he faced the repercussions. And even today, I'm not sure that he has fully recovered from those harsh repercussions. As with most bullies and their targets, Mr. Riddle doesn't know me at all. We have never had a one-on-one conversation. We have never worked on a committee together. He simply targeted me at the onset and has repeatedly undermined and insulted me since I joined council. When I made any request of our former borough manager, Mr. Riddle would give a direct order to not fulfill my request. At an executive session in April, Mr. Riddle sat with his back towards me as I presented research and analysis that Mr. Berry and I had spent hours upon hours preparing. Then he yelled and screamed insults at us. He has called me a viper, the enemy, corrupt, poison, the worst thing that has happened to this town. All of my colleagues, including the solicitor, have witnessed Mr. Riddle's attacks on me. But unfortunately, politics and the power of a vote sometimes carry greater weight than human decency or doing the right thing. So Thursday's executive session was no exception. During the session, we would interview a candidate for borough manager and then discuss. Unhappy with the outcome of the search committee's process, and remind you, I was not and have never been the chair of that committee. Mr. Riddle unleashed his rage on me. He yelled insults at me and called on me to resign. With the exception of Mr. Berry, bystander apathy once again took hold of my colleagues. Mr. Berry and I walked out of the meeting. The others continued on with their meeting for about another 30 minutes. So let me ask you, if you were Mr. Riddle, Would you change your behavior? So it comes as no surprise that Mr. Reynolds is not here this evening. It is a common call in his playbook. When his behavior becomes public, don't take any accountability and just lay low until the dust settles. But when his vote is needed, we will most likely see him emerge again. But I certainly hope that I am wrong, and I hope that my colleagues will help drive the culture change that is needed on council. I hope they will lead with integrity and do the right thing, even when no one is watching. I would like to submit this for the record.
You got it. Okay, just moving along. Ms. Russell.
All right, probably the only thing I really have to do is the North Main Street sidewalk change order. That's the last outstanding thing for the project. We did receive an updated quote and some comments from the resident, but they were too late to be able to put on the agenda, so we're going to discuss that in the next public works meeting and have a proposal on the agenda for next meeting.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Brea.
Yes, for community and economic development, I'm just going to read off some written notes here. With the Mary Yardley Bridge, the ad hoc committee is moving forward with a plan to market and fundraise around the project. As things stand now, we believe that we are close to about 50% of the fundraising goal in pledges. So obviously, as we transition to being able to collect real money, we know that pledges don't always convert, but that is certainly a good place to start for a project like this.
Can I interject a question?
Sure.
Do we have to see an agreement between the borough and the Friends groups and then approve it?
Right, eventually we will have to put forward an agreement. They have not actually started raising any money yet. Again, so this is all just sort of in the planning stage right now. But so I imagine once checks come in, yes, there'll have to be an agreement. Am I right on that, or?
Yeah, that's right. There is a draft agreement that's prepared and circulated to the president, so we're gonna, get that together and then move on.
Right, but it is, for now, they're still just planning, they're not actually taking any action. In regards to, just want to make a note in here for Pretty Bird is expanding their business to have sushi service in the evening. Just to note that they will be requiring a variance from the zoning hearing board regarding parking. So I believe that's set for October. It's November. Okay. So that will be on our calendars. Also at the next planning commission, we're set to have a discussion around the proposed fences in the floodplain ordinance. We've been talking for a little while about relaxing those standards just because so many people in the floodplain already have fences. If you're one of the houses, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that you can't put up what your neighbor has or what all of your neighbors have. So we're doing this in a way that FEMA is approving, so it won't have an impact on the flood insurance rates. So we'll be having a discussion about that with the Planning Commission. Once it goes through those channels for Yardley Borough's Planning Commission and Bucks County Planning Commission, we hope to move forward and advertise that change. And the last bit is, again, with the zoning hearing board, community economic development will be attending the next meeting as there are issues surrounding just floodplain variances in general. And again, the concern here is that if we grant too many substantial variances in the floodplain, this is not like a small expansion, this is a situation where there is nothing and we build housing. If we do too much of that, insurance rates for everyone in the borough would go up. So currently, new development cannot happen in the floodplain. But if variances are granted, that could have an impact on the entire community. So we just want to go and meet with them and make sure that everybody's on the same page There are a number of challenges to the floodplain ordinance that are set to go before the zoning hearing board. So we just want to make sure we're keeping track of everything so that we don't see those flood insurance rates go up for folks that live in the floodplain. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Bria. Let me return to one object, which is the, not sure what the committee is going to be called, but the Friends of Reading Avenue. We have 3 applications that have come forward. We are continuing to leave that application period open if anyone wishes to join. And the parent would be Chris Kavanaugh, it would be Brian Welsh, and Mr. John Chalice. So those 3 members, I just asked you to make a note that they are the committee members. Liaison, we have Ryan Berry, current. And I plan on attending those meetings as well as the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I don't know if any- Chris here? Thanks, sir. Okay, that concludes that portion of the meeting. We're going to move on to other reports and the bill list. Need a motion?
I move to approve the bills list dated October 2nd, 2018.
Second?
Motion has been put forth and seconded. Are there any questions on the bill list? Questions, hearing none. Let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, abstained, none, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Correspondences, anyone have correspondences to come before this council? Hearing none, we'll close that portion. This is the portion of the meeting we're open to the public. Basically, where members of the audience can address council on matters not on the agenda. If you wish to comment on an item that is on the agenda, you'll be given an opportunity to do so during council discussion of the agenda. Members of the audience who wish to address council are asked to stand, give their name and full address. If requested, there will be a follow-up by council committee or council members. It is open to the floor. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Sandy Boker, 84 North Main Street. I just want to thank you all for the job that you do, because I don't think we say that enough. I know we complain enough, but you don't always say thank you. And I'm saying thank you for me and my family for what you've done. The 3 points. One is a thank you also to Curry Warren, who helped us to get the traffic study done for Yardley Borough. And we still have, I hear it's very thick. I only read about 2 pages of it. And
Exciting stuff.
and second point is, as far as Borough Council is concerned, I'm not sure, and I think Chris, you were involved with Perry Warren as well, right? Getting that traffic study through.
Well, if you're happy, I'll take credit for it. Really, I have to be honest, it's not, but thank you.
There were 2 points of the study, and I haven't obviously finished reading it. One was the weight. I'm not sure weight was involved in the study, and width of the trucks coming through town. And that's something I think the council needs to be aware of, to look into the width and the weight of the trucks. Is that in that study somewhere that I just missed it? Anyway, and thirdly, I would ask if the Borough Council is going to establish a committee of some type or attach it to the safety committee, and that would become part of the safety committee and what we can do to make it safer for the town and keep this town as nice as we want it to be. So that's my point. So thank you to you. And I would just again encourage you to set up some type of committee that would meet on a regular basis.
You do know, Sandy, that the first meeting of the month is the public safety meeting.
Yes,
And
I
that
do
is
know
open-
that.
That is open to the public
And I
also.
was late.
Right, but again, if you have folks that want to come in, let's begin with that. If you want to come into the next, say, November.
Just come in and just,
Yep.
and then we could discuss it.
Again, if a body forms it, of course, we'll go ahead and put it together.
Okay, I see several members of our informal community here right now tonight, so I'm sure that would work.
If you would, just come together, give a note, send it to our borough manager, and we'll form that committee. We'll come to the meeting, right, Chief?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Matt Curtin, 88 North Main Street, Sandy and Dave's neighbor. 3 very quick things. I've not been here in a while, so the last one's delayed. Sandy, that was awesome. Paula, congratulations. And to Ryan, this is overdue, but we had a lot of issues with the sidewalk in my particular situation with where it ended and the turnaround and everything. And you were a great partner, so I wanted to thank you for doing what you said you'd do and helping me through that and getting it done right. So thank you.
Okay. No response, any other questions? Comments from the audience, sir?
Tom Lopez, 123 North Main. I want to tell a story. Imagine walking to Giant on Sunday and being barraged with, did you hear what happened at Executive Council? That's the reason I came here tonight. But to have you start this meeting the way you did, God bless you. How dare we allow that behavior? What would it take to drain the swamp? Do we need to drain the swamp? Something is fundamentally wrong. And I thought to myself, no wonder they wanted executive council so that no one could see what really goes on behind closed doors. We need to stop that. We need to not allow that. Respect for volunteer work and to be treated like that is utterly just unacceptable. I'm not surprised to see our friend is not here tonight, but what do we need to do? What does the committee need to do to make it never happen again? Can that person lose that seat? We voted in, why can't we vote him out? I don't understand the fundamental pieces about why that's allowed. And what do we need to do as a community? It's just unacceptable. That's not what Yardley Borough is. And until we fix it, we will never have a fully trusting community. When people fear that that is what happens behind closed doors, how will we ever trust what potentially goes on behind closed doors? So I ask to give that some consideration. We had such hope in January of this year with the new council to rid of the garbage and the nonsense and the attacks and things like that that we saw previously. We're quickly losing hope. It's not even a year yet. What do we need to do to make sure that never happens again? It's simply not acceptable. And with that, I say thank you for what you do to hire
Yeah.
Chris is shaking in boots right now, but I'm going to second everything you said. Janet Harding, 121 South Main Street, otherwise known as Chris's better half, Mrs. Mayor, former Eagles cheerleader, whatever you want to call me. You don't see me here very often. I've lived in this borough since 1996. I know, I look real young. But for those of you who don't know that, Chris and I have lived in this community since 1996. That is disgusting behavior. There is a reason why I don't come in here a lot and don't participate in this community. There's a reason, and that is disgusting behavior. And for every single one of you who think that that's okay, it's not okay. So something needs to be done about it. And he can't even show his face in here. I kept my mouth shut long enough. Chris didn't tell me the full story because he doesn't want me to know the full story. I had to come in here to see the full story so I could see Paula get her due. Because if he then he knew I would stand up here and say something. But for every single one of you who think that that's okay, that's disgusting that somebody would have to go through that. He needs to be removed from here. And every single one of you who did nothing about it, you did, and that's great. And stood by and continued on with the meeting while someone was treated that way, it's disgusting. So when you wonder why I don't participate like Chris does, 8 years on council. My husband put 8 years in on council while I worked in the NFL. I was never around, I was traveling. 8 years, and all the services matter. And this is not the first time people have been treated disgustingly by repeated individuals. But once again, it had to come to something like this, which is a shame. So, it would be nice if he showed his face here, though, to take responsibility for his behavior. So, that's all I'll say, but think about it. If he can put his head down at night and go to sleep, and feel okay that he lives in this community treating people like that, none of us should be okay with it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yeah, sir. Sorry, Pete, conductor you back here.
Pete Ladani, 44 South Bell Ave, just a matter of disclosure, I'm the chairman for the planning commission, and that's why this whole fence ordinance is being reviewed next Monday night. So if anybody is interested or concerned about that process and what it can do for you or against you, please attend that meeting. And I just want to make the council aware that as a part of the defense ordinance that's currently under review, there's a clause in there that says, no new construction, alteration, improvement of buildings of any type, permanent structure, except fences in compliance with blah, 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 will be built in floodplain. That one sentence is actually in conflict with the whole floodplain ordinance that I have in my hand that's approved by FEMA. So when we do a review, I'm going to ask our planning commission remove that line. So I just want you to be aware that it's an absolute conflict. You are permitted to build. There are certain restrictions that you have to follow. And I don't want there to be conflict or ambiguity. Someone was saying, oh, well, there's a fence ordinance, I can't build anything, without actually referring to the superseding ordinance. Okay? So we'll be following that. Second issue, second and final issue, for what it's worth, if I remember right, during the last election, bullying was an issue that was front and center. And I believe some of our members brought that up front, and there's an ordinance now preventing that. So I'm hoping that everything will follow suit and all come together and be cleaned up and put away. But you can't set aside the fact that it got to the point where bullying became an issue during the election. Right.
Any other comments? Sir? Hey, David.
Hey, Dan Moan, 132 Longshore Avenue. I just had a question for the vice chair on something you said. You said that the Community Development Liaison Committee was going to have, and I can't remember the words that you used exactly, but they were going to have a discussion with the zoning hearing board about granting variances. So my question is, I thought the zoning hearing board was an independent group that made decisions based on law and those types of things. And is it really appropriate for a member of council to lecture the zoning hearing board on what they can and can't do as the zoning hearing board? Is it even legal?
There's certainly no reason we couldn't attend one of their hearings.
That's not what you said. You said they were going to meet to get an idea across to the zoning hearing board members about granting variances.
Right, so I apologize, I maybe chose a poor way to characterize that. I believe the plan is to go to their next meeting. They are going to meet to have a hearing. And just like we have public comment during our meetings, they are required to have public comment during their meetings. And although we are from council, in a way, we are there as constituent is not really quite the right word, but we are there in that capacity. We can speak during public comment about it. Because although they make the decision independently of council, that decision can affect everyone in the community. So we can just go to that meeting. I plan to attend as well, just to make sure that the interests of everyone affected by changes in the floodplains are best represented.
Yeah.
Okay, because I've also, the reason that really put a red flag in my head is I've also talked to members of the community, and this whole idea that council is trying to push the zoning hearing board to make particular decisions because of their fear of FEMA or whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish, it's just not appropriate. And I think you going there and talking to them, given this history of council doing these types of things, because by going there as a councilman, you're trying to send a message, and your message, that you're trying to send the zoning hearing board is inappropriate. And you guys need to stop doing that to the zoning hearing board and allow the zoning hearing board to function as the independent quasi-judicial group that it is. And if I hear any more of that, I'm going to be writing a letter to the district attorney that our council is interfering with our zoning hearing board. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions or comments? I'm going to make one statement and comment about Thursday night's event. Following up with Councilperson Brady and Councilperson Berry did. on Thursday night in response to something that is not new, that we have faced. I myself have faced basically a slaughter. There's a problem on this council. There's a problem with the way we treat each other. I do not punish in public, if you would. I do not do any of that. I praise in public. That's just a rule. The answer is, as the meeting continued after Ms. Brady or Councilperson Brady and Councilman Ryan left, we had a discussion about conduct. What can they do? Options are very limited. Mr. Ruddle's not here this evening. A couple of things happened. The reason why I won't comment is because he'll be here, and when he decides to comment is when I will talk, very frankly. And he wishes to bring this into this public arena. An executive session is designed for that. There will be letting, there will be arguments, there will be. None of that is appropriate, what happened to Councilperson Brady. None of it. Another issue is I cannot allow, as the president, to lose the forum. If I lose the quorum with 2 members walking off, I've defeated myself in what that executive session was about. That executive session to me, and believe me, I received the same wrath. My skin's much thicker, if you would, if that's appropriate. My ability to understand, because I'm driven by the mission. My mission Thursday night was to sit here and whether whatever, just as I do every Tuesday night, if people can, that's a part of the being that we are, that's what we accept. My mission Thursday night was to leave that meeting with this very resolution, number 1, hiring a borough manager. Nothing is going to take me off of mark. Nothing. Certainly not something that I've seen and have now gotten into like a gadfly. You get into where you just go. After a while, you just give up. You just kind of stop swatting at it. The idea is, a couple of things happened. I suspect part of the larger picture was to get a few resignations. I suspect that's in the film somewhere, packing a couple of chapters in. I also suspect that part of it was to derail the process. I also, most clearly, I don't have to suspect, I know, there was a challenge for me to accept some 8th grade conduct and to challenge and fight back. Destroy the forum, lose the quorum, shut the meeting down. I'm not going to do that. And I will continue to say what I have to say, Mr. Borough, here or not. We are in different places. I'm sad that the perception here in this group sometimes is that the new council was hired to do something and the faith and the hope is starting to dwindle. It's not the new council. It's not those members you elected that is the challenge. I wouldn't call it a problem. It's a challenge. There's a lot of change that happened here. There's a lot of people who don't accept change. I don't accept the conduct. I'm also not going to walk out of a room because I have a duty here. And you know what? It ain't about Brian Marshall. It's about what is this group about. So again, I apologize for not walking. I apologize not for having that solidarity, if you would, in effect, in spirit. I understand. I'm dealing with it too. If you remember, this entire council put me as president. I didn't even want this position. I'm trying to hang on. Tonight's mission, and we'll move to it right after certificate of appropriateness, unless there's other comments, is to put that qualified individual as our borough manager and move forward. That's what this is about. And I'll be damned if I was going to let anyone take me off that mark. So, did I walk out? No. Am I proud of it? If you understand the bigger picture, I hope you understand my position as sitting in this chair. So, that's it. I'll say no more. Question, sir?
Mark Brady, 23 West Avenue. Rocky, what are our choices to get rid of my brother?
You know, as we sit here, I can't really give you any specific things that can be done. You know, he's an elected official. There aren't many options in that regard. We don't have a recall provision in Pennsylvania law like some states do. So, you know, I think the options are limited, and I'll have to leave it at that.
But there are options.
Our solicitor will be looking into that because we must abide by our own ordinance, which is the anti-bullying, which again, many of these members ran on this platform. I think we have to correct the conduct. How we do that? I don't know. That's where our solicitor knows.
I'll just chime in for a moment too, because I did take the time this weekend to look up the piece of the Pennsylvania code that refers to removal of elected officials. And I'm not a lawyer, so my reading of it may be incomplete. If I'm missing something, other eyes will find that. But short of criminal conduct and conviction, our options are, as you said, limited, and we really don't have that ability.
You could take him off any, he doesn't have to work on any committee whatsoever. He doesn't have to voice that.
Yeah.
Put him in a corner, put a dunce hat on. I think it's out of control. That's the last time he's gonna do that to my wife. And that doesn't mean that's not fair. It would be my life's mission to make sure I marginalize him. Because he's done that to this community, not just to my wife.
Exactly. And a lot of us have lived here a long time and had to look at it, and me included, have turned my head the other way because nobody really wants to hear about it. But it took that, and it's just wrong. So unless you all band together and do that, it's a sad day for the community, because who wants to live among somebody like that? And I in no way thought you should walk out of there, that wasn't what I was saying at all. I'm just saying, by allowing him to continue with the behavior that's gone on for years and years and years, it's almost condoning it, and that is not okay.
Agreed. Other comments? Sir?
I'm not sure this is the appropriate time. I'm the treasurer of the Yardley Business Association. I just haven't been asking for the white gay. Is that to say?
Sure.
In our last board meeting, we noticed that it was brought up that our holiday decorations in the town are sorely in need of being refurbished. So we got together and we decided that we would basically devote a portion of money from our treasury to help the borough do that. And what we would like to, and I think this has been brought up before, but I want to make sure that it resonates and people understand what we're saying. We will match any contributions that are either from the borough or from outside people. We will match any contributions that go towards these decorations up to $10,000. Okay, and so the total amount could be as much as $20,000. So you get $10,000 with a $10,000 match. We already have a pledge for a $1,000 match from a local business. Basically, the mechanism for doing that is simply, you can make the check. We don't really have an account set up, and the borough doesn't really have an account to be set up. So what I would propose is that they make the checks payable to the Yardley Business Association with a noted memo option saying decorations, Christmas decorations, holiday decorations, anything that says decorations will go into that account. We'll hold the funds, we'll match everything up to, as I said, $10,000 and present it to the borough. Because we're part of this community, we want to see it be beautified and also be great for everybody that's here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good. Other comments?
Mr. President?
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
I think that's a great gesture. I just want to give credit to the business that stepped up. It was ShopRite of Yardley. And they actually made a donation on last week's radio show. So this is tomorrow. We'll see what we can do.
Thank you, Mayor.
You got it.
Appreciate it. Other comments?
I just,
Ma'am.
Michelle Small, 181 South Main Street. I just want to go on record and say, Sandy, I applaud your courage. I know that I've watched him berate people over and over, and it's not just part of the nation, that he's bullied men, he's bullied women, he's bullied children. And each time we slap his hands, his dog, his dog. But you know, each time we watch it, we're all outraged, and we just, we throw our support behind you. But there's really nothing any one of us does except to marginalize him, which I think is really critical. And I know courage is a really hard thing to come up with. And I think that it only takes 10 seconds for each one of you to have courage. Sandy, I really applaud yours. I had been really We cannot make him defeat us. We will defeat him eventually. Keep up the good work, Council. Thank you.
Comments, questions? And then we'll move away from this section. Okay, let's go to certificates of appropriateness, 1705.
Okay, certificate of appropriateness 1705 is for a sign at 10 North Main Street. This one has been in front of Borough for quite a while, hence the 17, not the 18. But we're finally ready to move forward with approval. So I move that we approve certificate of appropriateness 17-05 with the suggestions that are listed upon the report from Hockey.
Motion been put forth by Council Vice President Brea, seconded by Councilperson Ross. Any questions, concerns? Mayor, nothing?
No, sir.
Questions, concerns of the audience? Hearing none? Okay, we'll take the vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none. Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Brea. Okay, Mr. Brea, now we're moving to old business. This would be the hiring of the new borough manager.
Great. This is the big moment. Council has been engaged in the search for quite some time. We got off to a fairly rocky start, but eventually got to a point where we had a search committee that on our own collected applications, just as you would for any job. We did our phone interviews, we did our in-person interviews, and we had interviews with the full council. And before I make the motion, which is going to be to extend this offer to Paula Johnson, I just want to say how much I believe she can do this job, and that this is not a reluctant decision. There's a long history here that we have spent the past few months discussing about how things were run downstairs in the office under previous managers and in the time in between. I want this to be a fresh start because we have someone who's going to step into this role who is qualified and is willing to learn and has the #1 quality that we need in someone who is going to hold this position, which is that she really cares about this town. And she's willing to do what it takes. And even in the time that you've been in the interim position, I've had my email at 9:45 at night answered because I send them when they come into my mind, and she doesn't really need to do that, but she does. And if we have that quality in the person who's in charge, I am not worried about the technical pieces because we can always acquire that knowledge. We can always call upon someone who can explain the details. So with that, I move to authorize to offer the position of Borough Manager to Paula Johnson, with such position to last until December 31st, 2019, and on such terms and conditions as agreed upon between Ms. Johnson and the search committee put in an employment contract and subject to the review and acceptance by Borough Council at a regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
Well done. Okay. Put forth by Council Vice President Brea, seconded by Councilperson Brady. Any questions of this council?
Just a quick question. Do we have to vote again on the contract?
Yeah, we need to formally adopt the contract, yes. So once the terms are finalized, the document will be voted on.
Just one confirm.
I also just wanted to comment that the date that we put on that, that is just simply because we cannot bind future contracts or future council to a contract that we negotiate. So that's the only reason that that is set as the end date, in case anyone's wondering about that.
Any other questions, council? Mayor?
Yes, sir.
All right. Questions for you? Sir?
So who assumes Paula's previous duties now? Or is she just going to envelope all of that?
I have another motion that we'll make after this one.
Can you explain the treasurer, who needs,
Well, next meeting, we'll have a search. We'll set up the standards, which our borough manager will be a part of, and basically the chair of that search. So moving forward, we'll have someone to give her assistance at part-time capacity that you guys can understand at this time. Questions, concerns?
Congratulations, Paul.
You still have to vote on it.
Just trying to drag it out. Chief Johnson back there is ready to yell at me. Okay, let us have the vote.
Can I ask for a roll call?
You would like roll call? Absolutely. Roll call vote.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Jerry?
Yes.
Ms. Brady? Yes. Mr. Rio?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Well, that will be unanimous with the exception of Mr. Levinson. There we go. And now there's the second part. Mr. Rio.
All right, to answer the question that you had, in order to better serve the borough, I move that the general government committee, in conjunction with our now borough manager, develop a job description for a support staff position and engage in the process of searching and hiring someone to fill that position.
Okay, motion has been put forward, Mr. Brea, seconded by Mr. Ross. All in favor, any questions?
Just a quick remark in regards to the treasurer situation. I think this is where that would get decided, whether or not we want the incoming person to serve as the treasurer or those duties to stay with Paula. I'm going to kind of let that be, at your discretion. It's going to be your office now, so if you want to keep it, you can. If you want to delegate that, that's how that will go.
Any questions of council? Questions of the mayor?
No, sir.
Any questions of the audience? Hearing none? Oh, sir. Oh, no.
Ryan Moore. This being the case,
What's your name, sir?
Rob Johnson. Do I have to work Saturdays anymore?
Well, yes. Brother, I just said yes.
Good shot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Okay, let's have a vote. Do we need roll call? No. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, unanimous. Thank you. Very appreciate it. Councilperson Brady.
And we have another real good one, our police chief. We're going to have two parts. So first, we'd like to make an addendum to the chief's current contract. And this addendum will essentially indemnify chief effective upon signing, as well as designate chief as a full-time employee. There is no change to salary or hours as a result of that designation. So first I move to approve the addendum to Chief Joseph D. Kelly III's 2015 contract.
Second.
Motion been put forth by Councilperson Brady, seconded by Councilperson Ryan Berry. Okay, still walked in the Rob Johnson. That's it. Any questions? Questions? Concerns? Hearing none, move forward to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any noes? Hearing none, unanimous. Chief, thank you, sir.
Thank
Welcome.
you, sir.
So, Chief's contract, current contract expires at the end of this year. So, the past few months, we have been engaged in negotiations with Chief Kelly, initially with Councilman Brea, and then also with Councilman Berry and Sequin, public safety. another 3-year contract with Chief commencing on January 1st, 2019. I'll give you some of the highlights, some of the changes in his contract. He will be entitled to a 3% salary increase each of the 3 years. We are converting him to paid time off system from having separate vacation days, floating holidays, sick time. The indemnification and the full-time designation. He'll have a little bit more flexibility in his hours, so currently he is 32 hours per week, now we'll move to 64 hours every 2 weeks, so it lets him kind of flex up and down. He has to work more hours one week, and flex down the following week. And I also have overtime. I think those were the biggest highlights.
Yeah.
So I move to approve 3-year contract with Joseph D. Kelly III, employment contract, commencing January 1st, 2019.
Okay, motion to put forward and seconded. Questions on this motion?
Just like to thank Councilpersons Brady and Barry for their work on this. As Sandy mentioned, we negotiated the first round with the committee shift. And frankly, I was on it for the easy part because they had to go back after the lawyers made their comments and have those discussions. So thank you both for doing that. And I would also just like to commend Chief Kelly. His dedication to this community was obvious even when negotiating his employment contract, which is a time when a lot of people rightfully do look to, earn the most that they can. And even in his requests, it's so clear that he is looking out for what's best for this community and not seeking to take advantage. And I just want to recognize how lucky we are to have someone of your character in this position.
Can I just second Councilperson Sprague's comments also to the Public Safety Committee, the evolving Public Safety Committee? Thank you. If you didn't notice, most of the department, or a portion of the department is in the back of the room, and that's a testament to what Chief Kelly has brought to this community. They had to just step out before they got the call at the most unfortunate time. They were here, and as a mayor, I get to work with Chief Kelly on a regular basis. But as a resident, I can tell you that this is by far one of the finest individuals I've known. And we are lucky to have him as a borough, and so 3 more years is a good thing.
Thank you, Mayor. Question, sir.
Right. Bob Johnson, 188 South Main, 175 South Main. Last year, Paul and I, Mayor, had the pleasure to be in attendance of his 50th surprise birthday party. And hopefully somebody somewhere recorded the speech that he gave to us on that day, because that day was evident of how compassionate the chief is about being a police officer, serving his community, and that his heart and what he puts onto his job comes here every day. So I don't think we could be more fortunate to have an individual like him to be sitting in that chair, making the commute that he does every day, to show up on every social event, than Joe Kelly. Hopefully sometime publicly maybe we can see that video, because deep down you know how he feels, and at a very young age wanted to be a police officer. This is a man that we need to keep for a very, very long time. On a more personal note, 1998 when Paula got the job stuffing the sewer bills or trash bills, whatever we did when we started, via my dad's influence. And to see where she ended up here today I couldn't be more proud of her. The only thing I wish maybe was that I was mayor for 16 years. And it would have been a great honor to have him here to see this happen. But unfortunately, hopefully, from above, we see that this day has come forward I'm sure he and my mother are smiling proudly, as our family is and my children. And I'm just thrilled that we got to this point, and that maybe that her acting career is over, and it's now a permanent thing. And that's all I have to say.
Councilperson Brady?
So we took motion on the table.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, motion's on the table, and seconded. We have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none? This is accepted. Okay. Chief, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now on to Councilperson Brady.
Next up is, this is regarding a lease for the new police truck that council approved previously and actually has been delivered and is currently being implemented. So I move to adopt resolution number 18 and regarding the lease
Okay, motion to move forward by Councilperson Brady, second by Councilperson Ross. It's on the time, but I'll move Ross. Any questions on this? Mayor,
Just happy we got the truck.
Another thing the chief did was, thank you. And Paul, thank you. Okay, any questions from the audience? All right, moving on, so the vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Thank you, Councilperson Brady. Natural Resource Protection Ordinance discussion.
All right, just want to take a few minutes to sort of explain the history of this particular ordinance, because I think it's taken somewhat of an unusual path. It actually, I believe, was originally drafted under the previous council, and it made its way through Community Economic Development at that time, through the Yardley Borough Planning Commission, and to the Bucks County Planning Commission, all of which entered their comments, and we ended up with the version before us today. Those planning commissions approved it, they're okay with it. Earlier this year, we advertised this ordinance, and that was a unanimous vote. And then a month later, at the second vote for the ordinance, all ordinances have to be advertised and they're adopted, they're voted twice to vote to adopt. A number of questions came up, and the issue was then tabled. At our last meeting, we decided it's time to pick this back up again, take a look at it. We asked for feedback from the members of council to be provided to the Community and Economic Development meeting to see what some of those concerns were, if we could address any of those concerns. And with the exception of Mr. Berry, who did forward a copy of an email between himself and one of the attorneys at Curtin Hefner in regards to this issue, we did not receive any additional comments on it, at least from council. In light of that, we could have a discussion about it now, but this is something that I would like to move forward with. But again, it is on the agenda as discussion, so if we want to have a discussion, we can. If not, I think we should put it up for another vote to advertise and be done with this one way or the other. I don't like having it as something that's tabled. I think it needs to go up or down. So at this time, if anybody does have comments, let's have that discussion and then see if we are at a place where we're ready to vote.
So when it was tabled, my questions, when it was initially communicated to the community, what everyone had been told repeatedly was that this ordinance would only impact new land development, that it would not impact any current homeowners. But during that discussion, it was revealed that it does, in fact, impact anyone who lives within 150 feet of the waterway. So any modifications. So as a result of that discussion, did we make any changes to the ordinance, or, 'cause my questions haven't changed.
Right, so the ordinance that was in the packet is the original version. We can certainly make changes to it. I would like to hear the suggestions what they would be. The current water course buffer is 50 feet, but there are some circumstances in which it's 75 feet or 100 feet. It depends on, I believe, the vegetation surrounding that water course. So this isn't necessarily a clear increase from 50 to 150. There are some gray areas. But under the new version, or not new, the currently proposed version, it would be 150 feet water course buffer, no ifs, ands, or buts.
Can I make a point? So when I briefly had this as sort of a person who's going to reach out to Mike Esposito, who is Mr. Esposito, who was one of our solicitors. And the discussion with him, and I don't know if this is final, is that we can't change who this applies to. We can just change the distances. Is that correct?
Right, because it's a zoning change, we can't spot zone, so we can't take one area of the borough and change the rules. But what we can do is change something borough-wide.
And he suggested getting a sense of who it in reality would apply to, just to sort of see, like, if we do adopt this, who's actually affected in practice. Can the engineer at least look at that? His suggestion was the engineer would make I guess give us a report of who it actually affects, so we can see if our issue even affects anyone.
Kind of like a shadow map or something, let's take one of our areas.
Yeah, just who in practice is this going to affect? Because that would make me feel a little better.
Yeah.
Because tabling it didn't intend to kill it, it just intended to think about it.
No, of course, and then we got busy with a number of other things. Yeah, I think that's warranted to do a study with it, especially, I know there's a lot of concern around the canal, and the canal itself has special provisions. So in some cases, this may not affect some of those residents. But again, there's a lot of information, and there are a lot of cross-references between the ordinance. But yeah, I think that's warranted to do a study to say how many houses and where are those houses that this would actually affect, and what are we talking about here?
Since the conversation has to be dynamic, questions or concerns at that point, because we're going to move through it. So I want to make sure that we keep everything going forward. Question, sorry.
What's driving the origin of this to begin with? What's this history? What's its birth?
Again, this came from the last council, but I will be very honest about what I see the motive as it for, or the motive is. We all know that there's a pretty big piece of this borough that could still be developed one day. This changes how much of the open space can be developed. It significantly reduces it. As I said before, we can't take one section of the borough and make a zoning change. We can only implement changes that cover the entire borough. And by doing this, we limit how many new houses could one day be built here. And in my opinion, if we're talking about a development project of 75, 100, 125 houses, that significantly changes the character of this community. And it's my sense that is not something an overwhelming number of people want to see. So this would limit development. It wouldn't eliminate development potential, but it would limit it.
This is the EIT part two, which is a different thing. Because that was the original intent of the EIT, was to have preservation of the land and by the building rights. Now you're just putting some ordinance out there to protect it via waterway. It just sounded like EIT wants it.
All right, Mayor?
I think you're referencing TOT. No worries, they're all, somebody acronyms in this world.
There was an answer to the TOT.
And Councilman Greer, I think you'd want to add to the end of your comments, just because they're on there, it would also affect other areas throughout the borough, of course, right?
Yes, when I say the changes borough-wide,
It's not one conversation about one specific.
right, and we asked about the intention. I don't want to try to hide what the intention was. That's why I'm being honest about that. But the change affects everybody in the borough, not just one place.
Yeah.
So with that said, Michelle Small, 181 sorry, there's 2,000 people in this community, and 150 feet from the water affects a whole lot of people. And so the fear mongering that perhaps the Yardley Country Club will someday sell its thing, so therefore we need to run around and we need to tell anybody who's within 150 feet of any water, the river, the canal, the streams, that's a lot of people. And so what you're basically saying to anyone who lives within 150 feet, which why it has to be so big, I don't know. Why it needs to be changed, because God forbid, they're going to golf up there forever. And further, in order to do any work, if this ordinance is passed, you would have to get a variance. How much does a variance cost?
$850.
$850. Not chump change for a lot of people, for every little job that they want to do on their property. And I have a chance to say that all the people down in Rivermar, all the people that live along the canal, all the people that live across from the river are 150 feet away. They've just tacked on $150 right onto the top of any small project that they intend to do, let alone all the bureaucracy that goes with it. That means that every single time you guys get to do all that much more zoning, and every single time somebody builds, and who gets that money? And why is it so much money? Like, where does 150, is that just some random number, or do people get it? $850. So, I mean, the $850, like, does it cost $850 for a variance to be approved? And the variances take forever in this community. That means anybody that owns a house that wants to do some work on their project is subject to, like, we don't have a quorum, the zoning board doesn't meet this month, they don't meet till next month. It's like mountains of bureaucracy in a little bitty town this big, also that we are not afraid that, God forbid, something is going to happen up there on that hill, which has been there as long as this community has been there. It's not going anywhere. They're happy up there. So I don't understand where this is coming from, and I think that all the people that live down in Rivermar and along the canal will be hearing from an awful lot of people like me who think that this is just government making rules for no reason whatsoever. And that's all I have to say.
Just a few things I want to clarify. The case where you would need a variance is if you're going to expand what is called non-conforming use. So currently, as it is now, the watercourse buffer is 50 feet. In some cases, it extends up to 100 feet. There are different circumstances. If you have, let's say, a patio within that buffer, and you need to replace it, you can do that. You don't need a variance to do that. You'll need a permit to do it, but you already need a permit to do the construction. The variance comes in
if you don't have a patio.
Correct. If you're going to expand what is called the non-conforming use. And to answer the question of $850, I believe the bulk of that is for court stenographer, which we're required by state law to have here. Again, I think this is why it's a good idea to look into greater detail. How many houses does this affect? There are special stipulations within a certain range of the canal that, as we understand it, are set by the state. What do those stipulations, what do those stipulations say? This ordinance may be a situation of blue on black. Are we really making a change or are we not? And I think we need to look into that. We need to answer those questions. So I think I'm not going to move forward with the motion tonight, but that's where I'm going to head, is to get that information so we have a more complete picture as to who is this going to affect.
And so with that said, then how does this go forward then? So then will it just be like, we just keep looking to see if this comes back onto the agenda, and then
Michelle,
will
this is
people,
just discussion.
so then will the people that live within those areas be at least aware that may impact them?
After the scale map, when you go another.
That's not a bad idea. We should provide notice. We should provide notice that it would be impacted so that there's at least an understanding.
Yeah,
So with the
I
30
agree.
days,
Advertisement or when?
I think we're talking about something above and beyond our
yeah, but what we're required to do. My thoughts are this: there are 30 people in this room. There's 2,700, 2,600 people in this borough. There's a whole lot of people that don't even know what we're doing.
Right.
So it wouldn't hurt us, especially those people that are touched by this. Have that notice put out. I think that's appropriate. Sure. First assignment. So Rob, Saturday morning.
But if we do motion to advertise, we're not going to promote that, so to speak. It would be after the Saturday.
Well, let's get, maybe we do the report because we want to see if it's even necessary. It's
Yeah.
blue and black or anything. Yeah, just get the report. Let's see what it touches first. With the canal issue that Council Vice President brings up, that's a very real issue. I mean, that's there now, so, you know, we might just be spinning round and round in this great fear of the development of the golf course. Sir?
Dan Moon, 132 Longshore Avenue. In addition to the houses that are affected, you should also be telling people what it exactly means for them. If you send them an ordinance to the layperson who doesn't know what it means legally speaking, they're not going to know whether it means they can't build a fence, whether they can't build a deck, can they put a second floor on their house, can they build over their bathroom, can they move out this. Those are the types of things, when you send these people who are affected, they need to know in order to be able to give you meaningful input. So I would suggest that in addition to the houses that will be in there, what are the exact changes from what they can do now to what they will not be able to do after this passes? Because I know in 2014, council passed a floodplain ordinance, and now my neighbor wants to do something that they approved in 2016, and then somebody had a talking to somebody, and now they have to go to the zoning hearing board to get something that the zoning hearing officer said they could do in 2016. And so when you write these things, and you don't tell people what it is that you're doing, and you leave yourself all this room where someone wakes up one day and they go, hey, I no longer want any kind of building in the floodplain. I don't care what the ordinance says. We're going to require that we get variances and all these things. These are the types of things. Some people can build fences in the floodplain. Some people can't build fences in the floodplain. These are the types of things that are outrageous in the floodplain. And what's going to happen is you're going to put you've got your ordinances, you're bullying the zoning hearing board to not give any variances to any of us in the floodplain. And what's going to happen is people are going to stop moving into the floodplain and they're start moving out of the floodplain. My neighbors who would like to put a second floor on their home, which they were told they were allowed to do in 2016 until someone had a talking to, and now they've been denied and they have to pay $850 to go before the zoning hearing board. Those types of people with their families who want to live here and have a family in Yardley Borough, they're going to move out. And you know who's going to come in? People who come here for a year or two, just to get into the area, find where they want to live, and we're going to have a very transient neighborhood. You're going to destroy every one of our neighborhoods in the floodplain. So when you do these things that you're doing, by trying to stop people from building in the floodplain, think of the effect that you're having on this community, because you're destroying it. You are destroying this community. We had a neighbor across the street who had to get $850 to do a fence. Then they wanted to put a second floor, and they weren't expanding their footprint, and they left the borough with their 2 kids because they didn't want to fight the borough over something that everyone else in the borough was able to do. So you guys really need to stop and think about all these types of floodplain things that you're doing with the zoning hearing board, with the new ordinances. All these have impact on us in the floodplain. Us who have to live in the floodplain. Us who have to raise families in the floodplain. So please, when you put this together, notify everybody, tell them exactly what it is you're going to do, so you also know what you're doing to all of us in the floodplain. Thank you.
Can I say something real quick? So, Councilwoman Bria brought up that this ordinance, it might protect us if that piece of land in Long Hill goes up for sale. But I live in the floodplain, and just as a personal example of why we don't want to keep developing grassy surfaces and hard surfaces, my neighbor got a variance to put in a patio. We never had flooding issues in our backyard. Now, every time it rains, it runs right off their giant patio, and our yard floods. It goes into our basement. So we do live in a floodplain, and that does put restrictions on our homes because we want to limit the effects of the 2 beautiful bodies of water that are in our community. It's unfortunate, but when I bought my house, I knew that I had to get flood insurance and that there would be restrictions on what I'm allowed to do to my home. And I'm supportive of this ordinance once we do all of the legwork, because we need to be responsible with the land in the floodplain. And if we continue to build and build and build, and there's no grass left, there's nowhere for the water to go. And the floods that we've experienced, they're just gonna get worse.
I want to add to it too. It's about those flood insurance premiums. If there's development in the floodplain, whether that's from us getting rid of the ordinance or too many variances getting granted, those numbers that you pay every year are going to go up. We're set to get that 15% reduction. Those are the higher standards we've been working to. I want to see everyone get that. I know that's no fun paying those flood insurance premiums every year. I don't want to put us in a position where not only are we going to erase the opportunity for that 15% reduction, but we'd start talking about increases. So this is a difficult balance because I do fundamentally think everyone should be able to build the home that they want. But we also have to do our job and think, what are the consequences on all of the other families in the floodplain? If those rates go up, can they afford to stay here? Because it's their home too. So this is a balancing act. This is why we need to do the research on how many people is this going to affect. But that's why the floodplain ordinance is the way it is. I know it's confusing. Every time we do anything with it, I take a considerable amount of time to understand it because it is long and it does cross-reference with other sections and it's hard to handle, but there is a reason for it.
Question, start out meeting with you.
Yeah, Matt Curtin, 88 North Main Street. 2 things, David, I have been in recent contact with the guy who runs the head of the park thing, and I have all the information on what you can and can't do within your border of the canal, so if you want that, I'm happy to send it to you. I got it from him as recently as 6 weeks ago. It's very clear what they say the rules are, and he also sent me an email of what he practically enforces and what he doesn't, so I will send that to you. Secondly, I know enough about this issue to be dangerous, so take his comments with that grain of salt, right? My view of this is I don't think there's any emotion or energy from the community to do something like this for the consequence of it's a backdoor way to protect about a development of the Yardley Country Club. I don't think you're going to find that people want something that would be cute like that. I don't think so, right? So if that is the spirit of it, which is sort of what I gathered initially, I think it's DOA, and I wouldn't even bother doing the study because I don't think you're going to find support for that. The issue you mentioned is a different one, and the only suggestion I'm going to have, if this is practical or not, I don't know. But maybe there's a way to address what we're really trying to get at, which is the floodplain issues and flooding and affecting of homes, as opposed to protecting open space in other areas for other reasons. I just think we should be very direct of why we're doing what we're doing, because I think there's sympathy for that potentially, but not for maybe the other purpose of it. That's one way.
The purpose of, that was the birth of it, you were answering the question.
That was there. So that was the last key to that.
Yeah.
That's
that's not meant to be an accusation, that's more just a reaction to it. That's really, like, we've had a bunch of conversations at the few meetings that I have been to in the last year or two around solving that hypothetical problem, right? Or dealing with that eventuality, right? If that's what this is, I don't think there's any support for that, right? That's just my take of people I know.
Right, the issue she brings up.
And that's a different issue, and that's not something that we should ignore. That's right.
They're both represented for this. Service Development, sir.
Just quickly, Daniel on 132 Longshore, I very much appreciate that you're balancing those types of things, and we do realize in the floodplain that we live in a floodplain. But we're not talking about building our footprints out, we're not talking about the things that FEMA generally has general rules about doing. We're talking about putting a second floor, we're talking about putting fences on, all these things. Someone has decided in 2016 that these things are no longer allowed in the floodplain. It's not about protecting lives, protecting property, because if I go up to a second floor, that second floor is out of the floodplain. If I put a fence up, the fence is not causing any flooding, it's not holding any water. So when you do your balancing, you need to look at these things and say, what is the real purpose as opposed to just going, we're not going to build, you can't go up, you can't go sideways, you can't go with a fence, you can't do a shed, you can't do any of these things, as opposed to going, wow, will this really affect, with me putting a second floor on my home, affect the floodplain? The answer is no, it's above the floodplain. Yet, Someone's coming to the meeting next month, this month, paying $850 for just such a privilege on something that they were told they could do by the zoning officer in 2016 after the 2014 ordinance was passed. And then when they went in 2 months ago with their plans that they spent $25,000 on, having been told that they could do it, now they're told that they can't put the second floor on.
Absent that $850 payment.
Absent the $850 payment and approval, right? And Mr. Bree is gonna go and lobby the zoning hearing board at the next meeting not to give variances in the floodplain. So you see how it's all of these things that you're doing are affecting us in the floodplain, and we're not looking to get 90% coverage of our lawns and all that kind of stuff. We understand we're in the floodplain, but you gotta be reasonable. You have to be reasonable.
Again, we're having this conversation tonight for these very reasons. So, sir.
Tom Lopez, 123 North Main. It seems to me that if this issue really was, the conception of it was protection of that country club, and that was the fear, oh my God, they're going to build it up. Why not just concentrate there, no place else, leave folks in the floodplain alone, and just make that preserved space? Why is that so? I don't know what that would take to make it preserved, but we see those signs all around the area, preserved space, preserved space. Why can't that be preserved without affecting everyone else?
It would take someone to purchase it and designate it as open space, which we are in no position to buy the land or the development rights. And in terms of, and this is again the zoning problem, in terms of zoning, you can't legally take one section of the municipality and change the rules. You can only do it for everyone. And that makes it a difficult challenge. But that's why we can't just designate it open space, because it belongs to shareholders of the country club, and they have every right to sell it to the highest bidder.
But they haven't.
They haven't yet.
Let me just.
So they approached the borough to buy the development rights.
Let me just add one other piece. It's important to keep a rudder on this conversation. It is not exclusively about the golf course. We know there's an impetus in that. We understand that. But there's also other properties that are basically poised on the front to be developed that are clearly in the floodplain that there's concerns about. So it's a balance, and that's why we're having time. I just want to be clear as we start heading down.
It's the big one, but there are others. That's true.
Yeah, we've got a couple other properties coming at us, and it's causing us some concern. So that's it. I just wanted to add a piece. So it's very good.
No, I just wanted to, they might sell it, they might not, but they did approach the borough in the past. So that's the only reason we might think it's.
Subsidizing the golf courses. Mr. Goodall, you have a question?
So I ask one more question.
Wait, Chuck. Mr. Goodall, you have a question.
Sure. If the ordinance that was presented to the planning commission previously is different than it is going to be, I would request that that revised ordinance be sent back through the process, through Bucks County Planning Commission and Yardley Borough Planning Commission as well. Word has it, the last time we had a flood a few years ago, they said about 28% of our borough is inside that flooded area alone. 28, that's a lot of people. That's 30% of our revenue, 30% of everything that we do. That's a lot of people being affected by what we're doing. And that doesn't include Rock Creek, it doesn't include the river run. This ordinance affects, when Mr. Ruddle was here way back when this was an issue, we were looking at like 70 and 80% of the borough would be affected by this ordinance because of the tributaries that run through it, as well as the canal and everything on the side. My concern is, so if you can resubmit that to us afterwards with the shaded version would be nice. What I don't want to do is duplicate what we already have in our floodplain. Our floodplain, we don't want to create more ordinances that always seem to be ambiguous or in conflict with each other. And now before you get too far down the road, our residents are frustrated because they're told one thing in reference to one ordinance, and they look at another one that says it's okay. And so you don't want to frustrate the residents, and with all due respect, I mean, you end up making lawyers rich, because they have to hire lawyers to go back and forth and back and forth. With all due respect, and we're trying to avoid that. So
Let me add one other thing that you're hitting very close to the mark again. Let's wrap up this entire conversation this evening about the council new versus old. The reason why it was tabled, I'm very happy it was, because it was being driven by the past council. This is the opportunity, I applaud this crew here for dealing with the ability to have this discussion. And let's vet it out, let's think it through, let's make sure we're making the right decisions. That's why it was tabled. So tabling, I'm with Council Vice President Bria. I don't like tabling. It was a good position to put us in. Now we have a chance to really look at it. So I think these comments are very important.
This is good feedback. So it's not just that.
Yeah, we don't want to duplicate what we already have. And in your case, where there's water coming over the neighborhood, there has to be some drainage between the two of you to avoid that. And if it was engineered correctly, that wouldn't happen. And it can be fixed. But I would hate to have that cloud the whole issue with the whole.
To Mr. Man's point, there are, I think we need to be more specific when we draft ordinances. There are things that we will permit, like our new fence ordinance is trying to correct that. Whoops, we shouldn't have told everyone they couldn't put fences up, so we're correcting that. We need to be specific in drafting. Here are the exceptions, here are the absolute, we will not make an exception on, and I think, you know, a second story is different from a patio, but that doesn't mean that all rules are bad. We just need to make sure we're crafting them.
They're appropriate. And this ordinance in particular, I mean, maybe we should in some way put a notice on top of it that it actually does not change any restrictions in the floodplain itself, because the floodplain ordinance supersedes this one. So, you know, just in terms of what we're talking about here with the water course buffers, it actually would make no change if you're already in the floodplain.
So my last
Yes, Michelle,
question is there a time frame that these things can be done? Like when you pass an ordinance, like if somebody was doing something in the past, like an ordinance gets passed, then it's effective immediately, correct? So I mean, all of a sudden, no, I mean, country clubs don't sell in, you know, like in a vacuum. You know, they're pretty much, you know that that's happening. So couldn't you pass your ordinance then? You know, like, do we have to have it for all the years that we're just worried about? You know? I'm just saying.
You know, it gets into a lawsuit.
You're targeting them. Just call it what it is. You're saying about targeting them.
Let me add this also. Please, absolutely, that really gets expensive in the lawsuits. Let me just add this also. We're actually at something that Councilperson Thompson just brought forth. We went to great pains to set out the fence, the type of fence you can have. And we made all of these pieces and trying to keep it very crisp and clear as what you can do in the floodplain for public safety. And at the same time, and most importantly, was to save each person in the floodplain from that $850. So I think it's well heard here that we don't want to sit here and be conflicting ourselves to run forward and do something unnecessary to put that $850 back on the residents. We're very cognizant of it, and we're going to continue with that thought. The idea of the behind the fence was to eliminate that, because that's what you had to do to get a fence. It was absurd. You know, it's a lot of money for something that's as practical as the nose on your face. I mean, that's really why we did that. So I hope we're not going to become, you know, hypocritical that way. Flip the other way and throw a charge on it, but we'll see where that goes. That said, any other questions or comments? We're going to kind of wrap this up. It's getting late. We've had a fun night.
I'll motion to adjourn.
No, I have one section, but we don't have anything in it.
Oh, you have something else?
Because it's not, go ahead. Motion to adjourn.
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Okay, that's it. Second?
Second.
Second, thank you very much. Good evening, council meeting is closed.
Thank you.